Great. Thank you everyone for joining in. Good evening to all and good morning, Andy. Thanks a lot for taking out time and joining EliteCISOs weekly webinar that we have been conducting from past almost 3 years now. And for 2022, we completed H1 successfully. Not even a single Thursday was missed. And now we are starting our very first webinar for H2. So welcome everyone. Thanks again for joining. So the topic is going to be very interesting today, right? What you say is Orca Security, the cloud is yours. So everybody is on their cloud journey. Some are native on cloud, some are migrating their 2 decade, 3 decade old data centers to cloud. So we will understand how do you build your cloud journey, right? How you can set up your environment on cloud and how do you secure that? Now to talk about this very interesting topic, we have Andy Ellis joining us from US. He's advisory CISO with Orca Security. And in the EDT time zone, so we had to accommodate our schedule. So instead of 11 o'clock, we are doing at 5 p.m. India time. And it is again very early for Andy as well. So thanks, Andy, for taking out time and joining the session. We also have Baljot Bhatia with us, who is country manager, regional sales director for Orca Security. So welcome, Andy. Welcome, Baljot. From the agenda perspective, if you look how it is going to look like, initial 5-minute quick introduction. And we also have a LinkedIn contest today, right? And I will explain about how do you participate in the LinkedIn contest and how you can win in that. Okay, and then that's about quick 5-minute introduction. Then we will have Andy and Baljot talking about the cloud is yours topic, the main topic for today's session. And then at the end, we will save about 10 minutes for Q&A. That will be live Q&A. But while Andy is presenting for next 50 minutes, if you have any questions, you can put it on chat. We have other panelists from Orca Security who will answer your questions, while Andy is presenting. Then we will also have a Kahoot quiz. Guys, there are going to be 10 questions in Kahoot. All the questions are going to come from today's session, what Andy is going to present. And the giveaway for Kahoot is the Amazon vouchers, right? The first one will get 10,000 rupees INR, 7.5, 5,000, 2.5 and 1.5 subsequently for different places. And then we will have Wheel of Fortune as well. The winner for the Wheel of Fortune will get 5 sound bars, right? And we will keep on spinning till the time we do not find the winner. So all 5 are on the graph for today. And as you know, for the LinkedIn contest, we will have 5 Apple AirPods. Now that's the most important thing. You got to win into that, right? So I will explain next how you can win in the LinkedIn contest. And the session is being recorded, so that will go on link on EliteCISO's website as well as on YouTube. So let's see how the LinkedIn contest is going to look like. Now to participate in the contest, all you have to do is listen here, focus on the session, and then share your learning on LinkedIn, right? How the winning post looks, I will also show you that. So there are simple steps that you need to follow to participate in this contest, right? First is that you have to go to LinkedIn and follow EliteCISO's handle, follow Orca Security handle, and then share your post with the participation certificate. I will show at the end how you can download the participation certificate and then post that certificate, post your learning, tag EliteCISO, tag Orca Security. That's it. It's as simple as that. And then we will pick 5 winners and we will announce those 5 winners on LinkedIn and we will let you know as well. So you will have time till next Thursday, right? From today till next Thursday, you have a time to upload your post on LinkedIn and then follow these steps. Let me also quickly show you how the winning post is going to look like. This post is from my friend Kiran. So Kiran had one AirPod in the, I think, one webinar that we did with Micro Focus. So look at how the winning post is going to look like. Tag EliteCISO, tag Orca Security, put your learning on LinkedIn, right? It is not just one paragraph or a couple of lines you post. It has to make sense. So you have to really absorb what Andy is going to talk about, right? And then post that along with the certificate. So this certificate you will get at the end. I will show how you can get this certificate. And then make your post. Now this is one example of a winning post. This is another example of a winning post from Ashish Mishra. And again, tag EliteCISO, tag the company, Orca Security, for example, over here, put your learning and then put the certificate. So that's how the winning post is going to look like. OK, very simple. I will explain at the end again if we have time one more time. And that's about it, guys. Now talking about the stand and attend challenge. So this is now we are in H2, very first webinar. Do you guys want to take this challenge again, stand and attend? I'm not sure. I mean, we push it every time. So Andy individual is standing. So guys, if you accept this challenge, go to the chat and say, yes, you are accepting the challenge. Why you should do it, you already see it on the screen, right? If you're going to sit for the entire day, your brain will be foggy. You do not want foggy brain to participate in this webinar, right? Because if your brain is foggy, you will not absorb the session and you will not win the LinkedIn contest. If you want to win the LinkedIn contest, take this challenge, stand, and then we'll kickstart from there. So I see a lot of people putting yes on the chat. So great, guys. Thank you very much for accepting the challenge. Awesome. Great energy you are sharing. With this, let me transfer to Baljot. Baljot ji, please introduce your team and then we'll have a main session from Andy. So over to you.
Vikas, thank you so very much for a great introduction. And thanks, friends, for joining this at 5 p.m., accommodating our request to have this session at 5 p.m. I am sure there is going to be a lot of learning for all of you from this session. Just a quick introduction from our side. My name is Baljot. I am the country head for Orca Security. I have with me my colleague Oren. Oren is the vice president for Orca Security and leads our APAC region. I have with me Varun from India. Varun is the senior solution architect. And a quick round of introduction for Andy. So we thought for all the elite CISOs, we need to get an elite guest. So that's where we got Andy. Andy is the advisory CISO at Orca Security. He is also a member of Vial Ventures, a cybersecurity venture capitalist firm. Andy is a graduate of MIT and has been associated with a lot of cybersecurity startups. He worked with Akamai for about 20 years as a CISO. So we thought we'll get the best panelists for you. Just to give a quick introduction about the session, what you can expect. As Vikas said, cloud is a reality today. It's not only the digital native companies, it's the companies who have adopted, who were on-prem for the last 20 years, built up big data centers, have now moved also on the cloud. Not just one single cloud. Another challenge which we see with a lot of our customer is multi-cloud. They have AWS in their environment, they have Azure, they have GCP, and just to manage them, it's become the big chaos. While I've been speaking to a lot of CISOs, the biggest concern for them is, can they first get visibility? Can Orca give me a visibility of what cloud estate I have? Yes, we do that. Is it frictionless? Or am I supposed to deploy agents? So we are completely frictionless, completely agentless. That's the next thing that we bring in. The third thing, would I have to buy a different set of tools again if I have Orca Security? The answer is no. It's one comprehensive solution which can give you everything that you require to protect your cloud estate. There are companies, every company that you talk to has a cloud solution today. Some would say I have a CSPM, some would say I have a cloud workload protection, some would say I have a vulnerability management solution, some would say I will give you asset visibility. With Orca, what we do is give you everything as one single platform, and the best part, agentless. So no friction involved. We get up and running in matter of minutes, not hours, not days, in less than 6 minutes. In just 3 or 4 steps, depending upon the cloud provider, you can onboard Orca Security and the results are going to be in front of you. So I'd not like to steal the thunder away from Andy. So I'll hand it over to Andy to take us ahead on the session. Andy, over to you.
Thanks, Baljot. Oh, I think you did a great job of describing and selling Orca there. So I'll do a little bit less sales and a little more just discussing how that fits into your overall security program. Vikas, thank you. Thank everybody for your welcome. I do appreciate you not having me show up at 1:30 a.m. my time. I would have not been nearly as lucid, so maybe you benefit as well from this time. So let's talk a little bit about building your cloud security program. And I'm going to look at it in 4 dimensions so we can really understand sort of the key essentials as you build out. Now, it's important to understand when we look at things like our security programs, is they're often rooted in concepts from meat space, from the real world. Defense in depth is a very popular concept. I personally am not always a big fan of it because when we adopt it in cyber, we don't really remember why we started it. And so defense in depth is this idea of trading land for time. And, in the old days, you can go back thousands of years, but I'll just go back about 100, and we'll talk about the Maginot Line. And after World War I, France said, oh my God, trench warfare is awful. But what we'll do is we'll build this amazing fortification at the edge of our territory so that it will take Germany a long time to get in and conquer our territory, and it will give us, flexibility and time to respond. Now, the challenge of the Maginot Line, as everybody I'm sure is aware, is first of all, France didn't actually ever finish it because Belgium complained. When France started to build their fortifications along the Belgian border, the Belgians said, wait a second, we don't want to be on the outside of your line. We don't want the Germans to come destroy us first. And so France, through diplomacy, was talked out of implementing good security up at the border. Second problem is, as much as we like to think of France as being like it's Paris and everything else, like they had to put something outside their perimeter. So Strasbourg actually sits outside the fortification lines. It's actually the first French city to fall. But a lot of the challenge here is the adversary adapts. And the French designed for World War I era technology. The Germans had meanwhile developed armored personnel carriers that were fast moving. And so the forests that were here that were sort of intended to slow the Germans down, the French said, oh, it's okay if the Germans come this way. That'll take them like weeks to get through the forest. The Germans blitzed through, and their goal was not to capture any land at all. Their goal was to capture Paris. And they had a straight path straight to Paris, and that's how France falls once Germany gets around to attacking France. So the concept of defense in depth is this idea that we can sort of push our defenses further out and trade them for response capability. Well, in cyberspace, response time is really measured in milliseconds. So this idea that we would have things that we're happy to have adversaries take because it would give us signals doesn't really work out quite as well. The challenge is security is still rooted in this perimeter-based concept. For those of you who've studied military history, you may be familiar with the Roman army encampments. And Roman legions were fantastic at this, right? They'd march all day, and then they'd stop in the early afternoon. And by nightfall, they had basically built these walls, armored berms of dirt. They'd start putting fences up around them. If they were going to stay for a long time, they would just keep building this city. And it would sit there. And in fact, if you go into Israel today, you can go down to Masada, where you can actually see the imprints that one of those cities has left behind 2,000 years later, like this temporary camp, leaves 2,000-year evidence. And the whole idea of the perimeter is to say, look, we know we're the good guys inside, and everybody outside is probably a bad guy. But we need people who have to be able to leave our encampment, our scouts and our hunters, and then they come back in, and we need to know who they are. So we want them to all come in through one location. And to get through, they need to know the word of the day so that they can pass. Literally, this is the origin of the concept of a password. Is that morning briefings when a scout would head out, you'd say, hey, the password of today is Dorian, because nobody would ever voluntarily talk about Dorian. And so when you come back, before they would shoot you, you'd be like, hey, the password is Dorian. They'd let you get close enough to then figure out who you were. So it was never really meant as anything other than very quick friend or foe recognition. It's become this model where we trust passwords for so many things in ways that we shouldn't. Now, the challenge of a perimeter is you have walls, and adversaries could choose to just climb your walls if they wanted to. So we think about defense as stacking. So maybe we add to our perimeter a moat. So we extend further out, not in a thing that's going to trade space for time, but in something that's going to layer. Now, if the adversary shows up with their ladder, well, it's kind of hard to put a ladder into a moat full of water. So you have to first build a bridge and then put a ladder. So you have to sort of attack them together. Now, if your moat was a mile away from your perimeter, it wouldn't do you much good. It's very important that the moat be right next to your walls, but not too close. You don't want it to undermine your walls. Now, moats work much better if you add active defense. People who stand on top of the wall and shoot whoever's trying to climb up. Now, active defense also doesn't really move over into the cybersecurity world because adversaries don't actually physically get close to you. In fact, they're often coming through machines that other people own. And if you attack those machines, you're like, I see who this attacker is. I'm going to destroy the machine they're coming from. Well, if they compromised a dialysis machine in a hospital and you're the one who attacks the dialysis machine to knock it off the internet and maybe stop, cleaning someone's blood, then you've just committed a crime. So it's very challenging for us to use this model when we move into cyberspace, but it's not impossible. So let's walk sort of through a little piece about this. So first idea to think about is that even in the physical world, defense is not linear. You don't get to say, well, I have built this amazing gate and I have this adversary and they have to come at my amazing gate, and I can keep adding fortifications to the front of my castle, and of course the adversary will always attack that very specific front of my castle. The adversary gets to attack us in breadth, they get to attack us in height, and they get to attack us in depth. They get to choose where to attack. They get to attack all of our defenses at the rate that they choose. And then once they have penetrated one defense, they get to move, we often say laterally, but I like to think move more deeply into our networks. And so we have to think about our defenses within that framework. How are we dealing with those, three different dimensions? Because if we don't consider how the adversary is going to operate, well, then it's repeating the mistake the French made. They did not consider how the Germans would actually attack them. So we can just be a cyber Maginot Line all over again. So today, let's talk about how to approach that challenge. So the first dimension we talked about is the breadth or width, if you prefer. And since the adversary gets to choose the point of entry, we don't get to say, well, I'm going to fortify my most important point of entry. We have to know all of the places. Now, I'll share one of my least favorite incidents that happened to me personally. We had a very significant database, previous employer, that had sort of all of our threat research in it, all this information about attacks, but embedded inside that was actual user traffic. So it's a very sensitive system. We protected access to that system in so many ways. We were so pleased with it. And then one day, our network engineering team calls us up and says, hey, we've got a problem in that data center because the network is currently saturated. There's a machine that we don't know what it's doing, and it's currently like flooding the network links. So we're like, okay, that's kind of weird. So we go and we investigate, and sure enough, there was this extra machine in the data center, and that machine was, running an operating system that we didn't support. And it's sort of this fascinating thing. It had a crypto miner on it. But what had happened was a data scientist wanted to test out new tools. The tools were not supported by the operating system that we normally used. So they took a machine, they installed CentOS right out of the box. It didn't do any hardening on it, installed the tool that they wanted to use. They gave it access to our database right next to it, did their work. And when they were done, they're like, okay, somebody else will clean this up. Well, there was nobody else to clean it up, and that was where the adversaries compromised. They compromised the machine right next to our most valuable asset. Now, we think we were fortunate in that the adversary who compromised it just installed a crypto miner. Although later I've come to believe that just install the crypto miner is dangerous thinking for CISOs. We should assume that competent adversaries, after they get whatever they want, will install crypto miners as a leave behind to sort of make it easy for forensics teams to come to a conclusion that nothing really happened. So advice there is there's no incident that you get to just say, oh, it was just a crypto miner, unless you saw the entire attack from start to finish. So the adversary gets to choose. We didn't know about this machine that the adversary chose to attack. Had we known about it, we would have been able to do better things about it. So first thing is you have to understand the entire ecosystem so that you can figure out where your perimeter really is and what path the adversary is going to come into. So let's talk a little bit about Orca here and what Orca does. So Orca builds a unified data model out of a number of sources, and I'll talk about those in a moment. And the idea here is to say, look, it's one thing for you to say, look, here's what's running on every one of my machines. But if you don't know what every one of your machines is actually doing, then you don't know what that matters. So it starts with side scanning. And how side scanning works, I love this technology. This basically runs on the snapshot data store. So if you're running in a cloud, one of the things the cloud does is it takes snapshots of every workload you have, it stores it on disk, on your backplane. And the whole purpose of that is so if they need to move you to another machine, they just restore from that snapshot. Well, those snapshots are basically a forensic image of every machine in your environment. Normally, businesses only interact with forensic images after a breach, right? You take the forensic image, you hand it off to some investigator, and they come back like 5 weeks later, and they tell you, well, we think maybe this is how the adversary got in. Probably your organization has moved on by now. Well, instead, we're doing that scanning in real time. So we take those forensic images, we use them to rebuild a model of what the system is actually doing, what's actually installed on it. But then we look at the cloud control plane and we say, well, what permissions does that system have? Who is it actually able to talk to? We probe the network to see what can it actually connect to. We look in CI/CD, we're looking at your entire workflow to say, hey, what are the images that got installed on that machine? We're going to look at the audit logs to say what events happened to that machine. And we look at the authentication store to figure out what does that machine have access to and who has access to it. So that lets us build this unified data model that starts by giving us an asset inventory. And that asset inventory has context. So now you can look at your entire perimeter. And I should probably stop using perimeter because we no longer operate in a perimeter style world. Every machine is its own island. We have built an archipelago of all of these islands that tie together, and that's what's going to come out of that unified data model, is then the ability, once you have this inventory, to prioritize alerts, to understand your identity and access management risks, to do the compliance. Hey, am I actually patching all of the machines that have access to some interesting set of data? I can orchestrate my remediation and my integrations and do all of the various security capabilities I want to do, but it all really grows out of this unified data model. So that's the first thing, is how do you understand the breadth? And you understand the breadth by understanding everything that you have. Now, unfortunately, the way normally we approach security assets is we start and we say, what's our most valuable asset? And if we did that, we would never try to build a unified data model. Instead, we want to say all of the assets might be valuable, so let's collect them all. So that's dimension one, tackling the breadth and width problem. So let's look at dimension two, height. Now, height is interesting because what we need to understand is, do we have security controls that actually work together, right? So it's one thing to say, well, we have identity and access management and we have vulnerability management. But if your identity is sitting on disk, then vulnerability management if you slip up vulnerability management, you kind of defeat your identity and access management because those aren't working together. Or, for instance, with multi-factor authentication, I think we've talked a lot in a lot of forums about phishing against multi-factor authentication. The first way that MFA was done is, adversary or user would type in the password, and once they typed in the password, they'd get a push prompt to their phone, maybe with a one-time password that they would then type in. And if you do multi-factor that way, well, the adversary gets to sort of, climb halfway up. They steal your password. Now that they have your password, they can attack that second factor. You want to have integrated multi-factor auth, something like FIDO, where an adversary can't get you to give them the password and then use it on a different website than you thought it was coming from. So how does that height dimension play out when you look at understanding the cloud risks? Well, you have to look at all of these risks, right? What are my vulnerabilities and my misconfigurations, and where is my data, so that we can start to understand, do we actually have a coherent story about how the security controls work together, right? Do we actually, is malware showing up on systems that we thought were patched and that we thought were configured correctly? Because if so, that suggests that there's some way that an adversary is still getting in. And so it lets you collect all of these risks and then sort of compare them, where do I have insecure data in PII? Because I need to understand, have I put it in a place where it doesn't have a tall enough wall in front of it? And so that's how we're going to tackle that step two, is to look at all of the security controls in one place. Because unfortunately, what often happens is you have one tool that tells you what you're doing for patch management to deal with vulnerabilities, and another tool that tells you about misconfigurations. And so understanding whether a system is simultaneously configured correctly and patched is a very hard problem in legacy bespoke point systems. So we want to bring that all together in one place to see if our wall has actually stacked up correctly and that machines are well protected against multiple problems. So depth, this is my favorite. I love lateral movement. I may be the only person who loves lateral movement who isn't an adversary. And the challenge with the way most of the time that we think about lateral movement is that we start as defenders thinking back here. We talk about our crown jewels, and then we start to work our way slowly outwards, building security layers. Well, that's not how adversaries think. Adversaries are not actually targeting our crown jewels. I know that probably sounds a little confusing because every breach that we talk about is about the adversary who got to the crown jewel. But they don't get to the crown jewels by targeting them. They get to the crown jewels by targeting what's on the outside, right? They're going to find anything they can do to get into your environment, right? They're going to find whatever machine is unpatched, and they're not going to do it by first taking inventory of your whole network and doing threat recon. We love talking about adversaries as doing this hard work up front. They don't. They do the easy work up front. They just scan the entire internet looking for things that are easily vulnerable. That's most attacks. I'm not going to say there aren't targeted, very careful attacks, but most attacks are, hey, I looked for a machine. Oh, look, I got onto the machine. Great. What credentials does it have? Oh, it has a credential and it tells me what IP address it goes to. Oh, I go there. Oh, hey, what's on this machine? Oh, look, it's a crown jewel. Right. And often what happens, especially with nation state actors, is this is actually, think of this as tier 1 support. The person who's doing these scans, like they're just the lowest paid person in that company or that nation state actor. Once they find a machine and they say, oh, there's an asset here that I could use, it gets passed up to tier 2 and then it gets passed up. Similar to like the Nigerian 419 scams, if anybody's ever gotten the email that says, hi, I'm Prince so-and-so of Saudi Arabia, and I'm trying to get out of the country with, however many US dollars, and I'd like your help, right? And they're badly written. They're badly written intentionally so that skeptical people will never interact with them. But if you reply to it, the first person who interacts with you is, again, tier 1 support. And then once they reel you in, they start passing you up the chain to somebody who's better and better at this. And that's the same thing that adversaries do here. So if we understand that adversaries need to do that, well, we need the context, not for the crown jewel, but for this machine. We need to understand that this machine has a crown jewel behind it. And so we need to be able to look that entirely. And that's where I really love one of our newest features is the attack path feature that allows people to really focus on what matters. And you'll see an example attack path over here. And the way that this is set up is we say, hey, here's this machine on the edge, right? It is internet facing. That's what this little connection means. And it has on it a number of vulnerabilities, right? Normally, this is where you'd stop. You'd say, okay, I got a bunch of vulnerabilities. Let me put it into the patching triage. But also on this machine, there's an insecure private key. Somebody put an SSH key on disk. And hey, we can tell by looking at that SSH key and then looking at all the authorized keys files that has access to this machine with admin rights. And that's a crown jewel. And so boom, now you have this whole context. And now what I like about this is that when we first built this capability, we didn't actually surface the attack path. We just said, hey, this vulnerability matters a lot more because there happens to be access to a crown jewel behind it, because we had that whole context. But once we surface that out as an attack path, now what we can look at this is we can say, well, we can patch this vulnerability, but we're pretty sure a web server connected to the internet is going to keep having vulnerabilities. Like those keep coming up. That's not actually our top risk here. This one is, right? Here's our top risk, this insecure key that keeps making these vulnerabilities give us a 94 risk score. So by taking this attack mapping and visualizing it, it allows your architects to start to say, hey, well, of course, we're going to still keep patching systems. Let us make these systems less important and less risky by dealing with the real challenge here, which is that there is lateral movement from this machine to something more sensitive. Let's take that identity and maybe we don't need to have SSH access. But if we need to, maybe we can at least make that identity a little bit more secure, make it harder for an adversary to exploit it. Can we tie that in through an API in some fashion? A lot of different things we might do, but the goal is to create this attack path that now you have the context to see what the attacker is likely to do, starting from their outside, where they come from, all the way back into your enterprise. And so that's, for me, that's actually one of the biggest benefits here is being able to have that quick and simple visualization so that you can understand how this combination of things, each of which is a little bit bad, becomes toxic and creates issues for your organization. So fourth dimension is time. And here's the biggest challenge we have. Security systems are much like companies. We say about companies, if you're not growing, you're probably dying. Security systems, if you're not maturing, you're probably getting worse. You're decaying over time. And defenders wait. And by I say defenders wait, I don't mean that there's some tier 1 person who's sitting there continuously scanning your enterprise. No, there's just so many attackers out there that effectively what you have is this continuous set of attacks coming on. The moment a weakness appears in your environment, the attackers are going to exploit that weakness. And it's instantaneous, and it's been that way since the dawn of the internet. I can go back 25 years now. It's always entertaining to do the math in my head of how long I've been doing certain things. And I was installing a Linux machine to put in my home. Back in the days of dial-up and modem, that was the only way to get on the internet. And so the idea was I'd have this machine, it would be my firewall, and then I could have other machines in the house that would connect through it, and it would just connect out to the internet. I put a smooth wall on it, for those of you who might remember that technology. But before I'd gotten to that, I just installed Linux on it. I downloaded it onto a set of floppies, installed it, connected it to the internet to start to download some updates. And literally as I'm downloading updates, the machine was compromised. Now, it's not that there was some adversary saying, oh, I'm going to target Andy, or I'm watching this specific IP address. It was, I connected into my local ISP. Somebody happened to scan through. There were vulnerabilities on my machine. The adversary got in. Now, how did I notice? Literally, I started to listen to the CPU on the machine start spinning. My fans were running, disks were swapping, and I'm like, that's a little bit weird. Pull up the process table. I was compromised. And so we have to understand whether this is at the start of our journey or halfway along the journey or even at the very end of our journey. Even if you have a system that is going to be deprecated, like we're turning off this system at the end of the year. I think we've all experienced that. I don't want to say it's a lie, but I think it's an optimistic description of the future when people stop maintaining systems because they expect the system to no longer be used in the future. And so we need to protect the whole time. And so to do that, we really have to look at, how do we shift security deeper into the pipeline so that instead of the security team having to fix things post-deployment, we can start to do things that get those fixes in earlier. The idea here is that you start to build gold standards. And you say, look, if you're a web server that is connected to the internet, we have already implemented and gone through and fixed all of the machines in deployment. But here's the template that we expect. Let's run those security scans early to enforce that policy pre-deployment. Because if the security team is continuously interacting with the DevOps team in this firefighting mode, where it's, oh, you deployed something bad, please go fix it, then first of all, that's damaging to your relationships with DevOps. They will always see you as a burden because it's not even that you're slowing them down, you're disrupting them when they're trying to move on to the next thing. But if instead you have a template that says, hey, here, you just do this, and then hopefully you never, ever have to talk to me again. Because in reality, most of our DevOps teams never want to talk to us. And so that's what we try to offer them. We're integrate to your cloud native technologies. We're going to help you give these templates. If you try to check something in, it's going to warn you early. So while you're in the mindset of building a container, you get the advice and guidance to build that container safely. That's how we're going to mature our security programs so that we don't have to be continuously in a reactive mode. Now, that isn't to say that we won't also be a little bit in a reactive mode. We never expect to get out of the mode of, hey, let's fix some things. So here's the high level of what we're going to defend with, right? Coverage, comprehensiveness, context, and continuity, right? So those are the sort of the 4 C's that I like to look at for tackling the dimensions of time. And now I'm going to give you sort of a brief, here's just a couple slides on what a day in the life of Orca looks like. If Baljot didn't make you all very excited for it already at the beginning, which I think he did. First of all, totally agentless. So first of all, it's easy 1, 2, 3 deployment. And let me walk through what that looks like. So here you go, just one day. So first of all, here's what the onboarding looks like. When we say 3 steps, literally 1, 2, 3. How it works is you basically are provisioning yet another API into your cloud estate. So you go into AWS, Azure, or GCP. You get the API key. You configure it with Orca and say, hey, I'm going to use Orca. Boom. That takes about, I like to say 15 minutes, even though the slide says 5 minutes, because the reality is it takes about 10 minutes to believe that it's only taking you 5 minutes. So 15 minutes, I overpromise or underpromise and overdeliver. Now, once you've done that, now the first thing you get to this quick inventory. Let's look at every single one of the cloud assets. Now, here's the reality. I love showing this. Of course, you can look at every asset. The reality is once your cloud estate is big enough, you're never actually going to look at the assets. You're going to rely on us to look at the assets for you. This is for reference. when you see a problem on a machine, this gives you a way to identify more information about that machine. And that's what's most interesting, not just this huge and massive list. So now you've got that. Now you get to quickly prioritize. Hey, show me my worst attack paths. We're going to score them all. And that score is basically a combination of how dangerous this is, what is the toxic asset, or the crown jewel, and how easy it is to get from the internet to that, right? That's basically just how the math works. Anything that you have above an 80, you're going to want to deal with basically as an incident. So that's what we've discovered is that when you get to this point, most people sort of stop and say, "Ooh, let me go fix some things." And so that's what you do. You start fixing those issues. Each one is going to come with plain text like, "Hey, here's what's going on. Here's what you need to do to fix it," so that you can move forward. And then once you fix those, like the first, scary issues, and everybody has some scary issues, trust me. If you integrate Orca and you have no scary issues, then Baljat will buy you the beverage of your choice to celebrate that you are that amazing. And if beverage isn't your thing, then the meal of your choice. Because then once you fix those things, now you have the always on security. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to minimize most of the alerts that you see. We like to think about it as prioritizing alerts to deal with alert fatigue. Most security vendors, and I'll admit I've been at several of them, and we've all had the same thing. We want to show you everything. We want to tell you every problem, and we're going to spam you with alerts. And the reason for that is if you get breached, we want to be able to go somewhere into those alerts and say, hey, that breach happened, but if you had only read alert number 7,355,863, then you would not have been breached. And you sit there and you're like, well, great, I'm not reading millions and millions of alerts. So we're not going to tell you that we're going to find everything, although in the reality, we're probably going to find pretty much everything. What we're going to do is we're going to show you the things that matter. We're going to say, these are the places you've already been compromised. We see malware on a system. These are the things that are imminent compromises. We see a path for an adversary to very quickly compromise you. And these are the things that are just hazardous. Like you should fix them. It's a routine, but don't drop everything to go fix those hazards or those medium or low problems. But we really want to escalate that security for you to say, hey, here's where you just were compromised, and here's where you have imminent compromises, so that you can only disrupt your teams when it really matters, and everything else becomes continuous. And most importantly, it's all in one tool. So you're going to basically have all of this visibility in one place, so that you can very quickly, look at what's going on, solve your problems. If you have a compliance team, they can just look at the compliance stats and say, hey, show me that all of my PII is protected in the way that it ought to be. Or show me that we're actually doing patch management the way that we say we are. If you have a DevOps team, they can easily go and look and say, have I actually done all the things I'm supposed to do? So that's the basic model, just one day with Orca. So I'm going to say thank you at that point. And I ran a little bit short, partly because I'm more interested in chatting with y'all. So if you have comments or questions, I don't know if there are any in chat because I can't easily see it from over here. We'll open the floor. Vikas, how do we normally do the negotiation for questions?
So first of all, amazing session, Andy. Really, really, interesting in terms of how Orca's approach is towards cloud security. So very, very different approach. So let's open the floor for Q&A. So typically what we do is at this point, I ask people to raise their hand and I will unmute and, they can ask their question. So first question is from my very dear friend from Chennai, Dr. Rajan. So Dr. Rajan, please go ahead, ask your question.
Audible?
I'm not hearing the question.
You're audible now.
He's muted or I'm broken.
Good evening, Andy. Thank you so much. I liked your session because the way you took everyone's attention is moving from defense in depth to what is required to understand the width and depth of it. That's very important in the context of we are moving gradually into a hybrid cloud. India is a very different kind of a market. What happens is still the fear of why should I lose my data unless my service provider offers me the confidence that, hey, don't worry, the data which is going to come to my cloud is safe. That is taking place. So what happens here is there is a hybrid cloud. It's not a fully cloud. So now the best thing that I liked in our session is that this technology has the track point, which is the attack path future, is very important, because you don't need to look at everything, because you need to only look at the most significant, incident is required to be addressed. Now, in the event of hybrid cloud, I understand that this model is going to look at every asset in the cloud. How does it synchronize back to a hybrid cloud situation? Thank you.
Well, I'm going to give you, unfortunately, a very easy answer, which is today we do not have a commercial offering that targets hybrid cloud. So we do think that while you're in a hybrid world, if you're actually, I would say if you plan on remaining there, but even while you're there in that transition, I think you still are going to need some of the legacy, sort of those on-premise tools within that hybrid environment. But the part of it that has moved fully to the cloud currently, we just use Orca. Unfortunately, we don't yet integrate back to that hybrid environment.
Okay, all right. So it is fully on cloud. Thank you.
Yeah, we're fully on cloud. We think that for many applications, that's sort of where they're going to live. We do recognize that there are some applications that will probably be hybrid for many years. And there are companies that are hybrid, that they're half of their apps are in cloud and half of them are in their own personal or enterprise setting, and that we're only currently tackling the cloud piece of it. But we're at least allowing you not to have to replicate the bespoke point solutions in the cloud environment.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks for the question.
Vikas, you're on mute. Vikas, you're on mute.
3.5 years and I still do it. So yeah, Saurabh, go ahead, ask your question, please. Saurabh Gugnani, yeah, great. Go ahead, please.
Can you hear me? Yes. So yeah, thanks for the insightful session. And this is just the kind of a tool, which every CISO looks for. If you have that one portal and you take away the different tools which you're trying to manage in terms of the cybersecurity. So just want to rephrase itself that if I'm using multiple, solutions for different points, which Baljot was mentioning in his, present pitch, that you have a CSPM tool, you have a cloud posture management, and cloud and stuff like that. If I onboard this, can I take my multiple verticals out, and that gives me one pane to manage my cloud solutions to the large?
Absolutely. I love your question much better than the good doctor's question, because I get to give you a positive answer to it. So you can ask that one again. But it's absolutely, this is one pane, and it has embedded in it all of the discovery tools. So this is not just we collect from the other tools. No, we do all the discovery. We're going to provide every one of these capabilities is native to the Orca platform. And so in the cloud-only environment, this is basically, I'm not going to say 100% of every security problem you have we solve. But for most of the global problems, IAM management, vulnerability management, CSPM, we're going to provide that for you. So if you currently have a number of tools doing that, we would happily let you save the money and just give us some of it.
Yeah, Baljot, let's speak on this then.
Sure, I will definitely reach out to you.
Thanks, Dr.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Let's move to next question. Siva Ramakrishna, please go ahead, ask your question now.
Good session. Thanks for the session.
Thank you.
I think I'm not sure whether you answered this question already, but let me repeat. So hybrid, it is not available. But when we are talking about multi-cloud environment, that is becoming quite eminent today. So people are using Azure, AWS, and GCP because of the project requirement to the tools where it is supporting, right? They are using multi-cloud environment. So if I am having a multi-cloud environment, which is the tool will be able to support it, the Orca will be able to support it, Andy?
Absolutely. So currently we support AWS, GCP, and Azure in production. And we do have some other clouds that we're currently working with to get that, capabilities. Those will be, a little bit later out, so I don't want to promise any dates on those. But yes, if you're multi-cloud, and whether that's multi-cloud for individual apps or what I think most enterprises have, which is, a new app comes out and it's in just a different cloud than what you've been mainline supporting, all of those get pulled into one place. We just have to take that 5-minute integration does become 15 minutes because you have to do that integration in each of the cloud environments.
Got it. Great. And when we talk, sorry, Vikash, just an add-on question on that. So when we talk about it, Andy, the biggest difficulty in implementing, there are native, AWS itself is giving you a a single pane of glass, and then Azure is also giving. But when we are trying to implement, the biggest challenge we face is about the visibility and what it takes to give the rights for the tool to look into that, right? That is the problem. I'm talking about even the cloud native tool. I'm talking about something which is available in Azure, something which is available in AWS, like an inspector or whatsoever we're looking into, right? The problem is that what it takes to give them rights, and then they will be able to have the visibility. So if I have to ask, if I'm going to implement Orca, so what is it required as a right which is to be given to the tool for do the scanning and give me the results? So will it be an agent installation? Will it be a specific access of specific ports you will look for? What it takes, Andy?
So what it takes is very easy. So we have what we call the pod, which basically runs inside your environment. And you basically will come to Orca, you get a URL API key, you go to AWS, Azure, GCP, you basically do the very fast configuration. You're going to basically plug Orca in one spot, and then that pod runs inside your environment, can scan everything that's going on, collect the data, give us this, a narrowed down view of it. We don't want to obviously see any of the actual PII, but so when we say 5 minutes, we really do mean 5 minutes. The AWS interface and Azure and GCP are designed to support this model.
Got it. Thank you.
Cool. Let me ask one question, Andy. So how Orca is different from, let's say, Dome9 and Palo Alto Prisma? So is it similar approach or some different approach you guys follow?
So our approach, we were the first ones to do the whole agentless side scanning model. If you look at Prisma Cloud, Prisma started as entirely an agent-based model, right? Deploy an agent on every one of your machines. They have since recognized that that doesn't work, and so they've started to adopt the agentless approach. But we were there first, so we've got sort of that head start on truly being agentless. You do not have to modify any running workload for us. You don't have to go and have your developers try to integrate anything to Orca. So we're going to do everything from sort of outside the workloads themselves, but inside your cloud perimeter. So it gives us this unique place that most security tools either operate inside the workload or completely outside the cloud estate. And we get to operate sort of within the boundary of the cloud estate. And so that's what made us unique when we started.
Awesome, thank you. Let's take next question from Mr. Manoj. Manoj, go ahead, ask your question now.
Hello, I'm audible.
Go ahead.
My query is, in case if we have a hybrid cloud, it's public and private both, is it safe to use simultaneously both the cloud options?
I'm not quite sure I understood the question.
See, I have a public cloud as well as a private cloud. I'm using both.
Yep.
So how safe it is to use both together?
Oh, okay. So it's not so. I mean, if you have so I heard you say you have a public cloud and a private cloud, and you're sort of using both of them together. I mean, it depends on how you're using that function. That's the hybrid cloud model, and it really does depend on the architecture that you're doing. One of the biggest challenges that we see with a lot of the native to the cloud tools, things within AWS, Azure, or GCP, is they really are designed on the assumption that you do everything within that cloud environment. And so if you try to do identity and access management across a hybrid environment, it's easy to get something wrong because AWS didn't really design for it. In fact, if we go back and look at the Capital One breach, that's ultimately the root cause of the Capital One breach. And I'm not a big fan of root cause. A lot of complex things went wrong. But the identity and access management system, when they had to give access rights to something that was outside the cloud perimeter that AWS understood, that's where AWS couldn't restrict it to machine roles anymore. It left an opening that later gets compromised and exploited by a former AWS employee, to be very clear. It's the level of depth of knowledge that one required. So in general, my take is don't mix work between public and private clouds. Because it's that interface that tends to create issues for you. Now, we will detect things like, oh, you have this public cloud environment that has an open interface to the world. Now, you may only mean for it to be open to your private cloud. Potentially will help you identify that so you can implement firewall restrictions that will make that safer for you to do. But I don't think I'm ever going to tell you that that's a very safe environment to operate in.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Let's take one last question from Somesh. Somesh, go ahead, ask your question now. Somesh, you are on. Yeah, I think some issue with the audio. So that's about it. I think no more further questions. So let's get ready for the Kahoot, guys. Go to kahoot.it. And I'm going to load the pin now. So all you have to do is go to kahoot.it and wait for the pin to load. OK, let's do classic mode. And the pin is 610903. So guys, use your full name, right? Or use your mobile number, right? We have to be able to identify you. Should not happen that, you join as VA or something. Join so that we can uniquely identify you. Name is fine. Just put full name and not just your handle. How many folks do we have? So guys, this is one of the biggest event of Elite CISO. We have 365 participants right now. That's amazing. We had the last was about 345 with Microsoft. We did recently, and 366 is amazing, guys. Thanks a lot. OK, so 155 participants. We will wait till 200 and then I will hit start. So guys, go ahead, be quick. Kahoot.it and the pin is 610903. All the questions from the session except one. One question might come from this screen of Elite CISO's website. Events, upcoming events, you never know what that question is going to look like. But yeah, only one question from Elite CISO's website. 100, 99, 200. OK, guys, I'm going to click on start. Now people are still joining in. I just want to give them 10 more seconds before I hit on start, because if I start, people will not be able to join. OK, what 216 static on that, 218, 19, 20. OK, guys, come on, do it fast. OK, I am clicking on start now. Manjot bhai, what do a winner get, right? So we are going to pick 5 winners. What do they get?
They get Amazon vouchers.
Amazon vouchers, right? 10,000, 7.5, 5, 2.5 and 1,000. Awesome. So pin is 610903. The chat popped up and I saw somebody's asking for the pin. Pin is 610903, 238 participants. Shall we wait for 250 or shall we get started? 241. OK, 42. 41. OK, I'm starting it now. OK, guys, let's get ready. So Elite CISOs Orca Security Kahoot quiz. The first question is going to come your screen now. How many principles does Orca Security have for successful cloud security? 4, 3, 5, 2. A lot of answers coming in. That's cool. OK. Awesome. So 4 is the right answer. 112 people got it right. Let's look how the leaderboard is going to look like. So Nandan Kumar GP first, G Venkatesh second, Shine is third. OK, let's move forward and let's see what the second question is going to look like. Very simple, true and false. Does Orca Security requires memory and CPU in customer cloud subscription? What does your gut says? Right, be fast, guys. You got to be very quick with this one. Yeah, don't put it on chat. We are not tracking chat, right? You have to be on Kahoot, right? Ashok ji, we are not tracking chat. It has to be on Kahoot. OK, false. 156 people got it right, but it was supposed to be. Yeah, it's a false statement, right? You do not require any CPU or memory on the on customer's environment. So that's great. Let's see how the leaderboard is going to look like now. Does it change anything? The top one remains same. Prakash and Shine moved up. Anil Chopra is the new entry. Let's see the third question. What are the minimum risks covered by Orca Security Solution? 4, 7, 6, 10. The minimum number of risks covered by Orca Security Solution. Sometimes higher is better, sometimes higher is not better. Don't put answer on chat. We are not tracking chat, guys. You can put for your own fun. That's okay. Okay, so the correct answer is 7. Right, 7 is the right answer for this one. Let's see, does this change anything on the scoreboard? It does change. The entire board is changed now. Very nice. Sridhar is on the top. Pragnesh, Vijay. Awesome. Let's see what the fourth question is. Using which technology Orca Security shows hackers' view of the asset? Attack topology, attacker mindset, attack path, or attack graphic? Right? How do you see view of an asset from a hacker's perspective? And let's see if this answer changes the leaderboard or not. Okay, so the right answer is attack path, right? Attack path is the right answer for this one. Let's see, does it change anything? Sridhar is still on the top and the rest board changes. Okay, let's see the next question now. The fifth question, how many systematic steps does Orca has to onboard customer cloud account? I mean, how many steps are required for Orca to onboard a new account, right? New customer cloud account. Is it 100 plus steps, 3 to 4 steps, 10 steps, 1 or 2 steps? Right? How many steps are required? Let's see. So the right answer is just 3 to 4 steps, and 120 people got it right. So that's a good sign. Again, Sridhar is still on the top. Awesome. The scoreboard does not change much this time. Let's see, the sixth question is coming on your screen. Can customer onboard all the supported public cloud environment in Orca? No, maybe, maybe not. Yes. What is the right answer? Let's see. I hope you were taking this 10 and attend challenge and paying attention to the session, what Andy was talking about. Let's see, guys. Great. Yes, yes is the right answer for this one. Okay. Sridhar is on fire. 5419. Sasidhar and Vijay are still maintaining second and third position. So that's great. Let's see the next question. Seventh question. How much time does Orca Security takes to implement the solution in production? Right. 7 days, less than 6 minutes, really less than 60 minutes, 1 day. What could be the right answer over here? Let's see. You know the answer? Yeah. Let's see. 226 answers already. Great. So 6 minutes or about 6 minutes is the right answer. Right now, let's see. Does it change anything? Yeah. So Sridhar is still on top. So first 3 positions are still maintained. Very nice. Awesome, guys. True or false? Orca tells customer about patch to fix the vulnerability. Is it a true statement or a false statement? Why would you ask a false question? Let's see. Let's see. 221 answers already. Great. So it's a true statement. Does it change anything? No, no, the entire dashboard remains same. Now the tricky question is coming up, guys. OK, let's see. Orca can discover zero-day malware in cloud environment. True or false? The tricky one is after this, the last question. Great. 223, 224. Pretty good. 6 o'clock. So this webinar is still 6:15. We are still doing very well from a timing perspective. Great. So answer is true. Now let's see whether the dashboard changes or the scoreboard changes or not. It's still same. I believe the next one will change the scoreboard. Let's see. So the next question is the last one. Which 3 cities EliteCISO Thales event is starting from next week? That's out of the scope question, right? It might change everything. Let's see. Delhi, Chennai, Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, Bangalore, Mumbai, Chennai. Let's see. If you go to EliteCISO's website for registration, you should know that, right? Awesome. So 94 people got it right. Great. Awesome. Does it change anything? Let's see. So the third position goes to Anil Chopra. Awesome. It changes. Anil from Delhi. Second goes to Sasidhar Reddy. Amazing. And the first one goes to, let's see, Sridhar. Congratulations, Sridhar. Amazing. So 2 from Delhi, and the runners up are Udit and Mr. CK Prasad from Hyderabad. CK Prasad ji from Hyderabad. Udit from Mumbai. Delhi, amazing. And I think Sasidhar is from Bangalore or Chennai. I'm sorry, Sasidhar. I lost track. So that's amazing, guys. Awesome. Great. Congratulations. So we will come back to you with the Amazon vouchers. Now, last but not the least, right? You are looking for this certificate. So guys, this certificate is very important. You would require this certificate to participate in the LinkedIn contest, right? LinkedIn contest I had explained in the beginning when we started this session. But since this session is till 6:15, I am going to explain it one more time. OK, so what you got to do is, all you have to do is, where are my opening slides? Just give me one moment, guys. I just want to utilize this time and show you how to participate in the LinkedIn contest. So to participate in LinkedIn contest, all you have to do is on second slide. So if you go to second slide, and if I put it on slideshow, so all you got to do is you got to follow EliteCISO's handle on LinkedIn. You have to follow Orca Security handle on LinkedIn. You have to share the learning from this session on LinkedIn, right, with the participation certificate that you see on the screen, right? So that certificate along with your learning, you have to post on LinkedIn. And when you post, tag EliteCISOs and Orca Security. So we will review all the posts, and then EliteCISO and Orca Security, we will pick 5 posts, right? 5 winning entry, and those 5 winning entries will get Apple AirPods. So that's about the LinkedIn contest. If you joined late, we will post the recording on EliteCISO's website. So you would still have time to review the recording and again participate in the LinkedIn quiz. The quiz will be open, or contest will be open for 5 days, right? So by next Thursday, we will announce the winners. With this, let me go to the Wheel of Fortune. Yeah.
They would need to tag Andy and me for us to have a visibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that as well. So tag Andy and Baljot as well. I'm sure there's only one Baljot and there's only one Andy in Orca Security, so you can easily find them on LinkedIn. Shouldn't be a challenge. And yes, now people are asking for the password, so I'm going to put the password now. The password is IdentiTech. OK, I'm going to put it on the chat. So if you go to the chat and you see the chat, give me one moment, guys. OK, so go to chat. My computer is a little slow today. Let's see. So I'm going to put the, come on, Control V. IdentiTech is the password. Now, if you ask me why IdentiTech, because is there on the chat yet or not? Let me see. The Teams interface is very slow for some reason. Still not there, right? OK, I will show you on the screen itself. So the password is, if you go to EliteCISO's website and if you come to events, upcoming event section. So password is IdentiTech, all in small, right? It is all in small. So format, fonts. I don't think you see my screen right now, but let me. Is it there on the chat? Yeah, it's there on the chat. Perfect. Varun, thank you very much. Password is IdentiTech. So how do you get the certificate? To get the certificate, what you got to do is, again, go to the EliteCISO's website, click on events, click on upcoming events, and then click on CP certificate. Once you click on CP certificate, this will ask you for your email. Put your full name over here. And the password to download the certificate is IdentiTech. Now, why IdentiTech? Because from next week onwards, we are starting a 3-city series with Thales. So there is no webinar next week, guys. OK, now since we are moving to physical events, we are doing a lot of physical events. So we can't continue with the weekly webinar. So we will slowly slow down on weekly webinars and we will do more of physical webinars or physical events because in-person events are always better. You can get to meet people and interact. So that's a good networking out there. So that's why the password is identity tag because of the series we are starting and it is in Delhi, Bangalore and Chennai. So if you are CIO or CISO based out of these cities, I would encourage you guys to go ahead and register for it. So registrations are open for all the 3 cities, Delhi, Bangalore and Chennai. So you can go ahead and register for it. Now, last but not the least that everybody is kind of waiting for is the Wheel of Fortune. So you see how cluttered this look like right now, about 388 entries out here. So there are 5 giveaways today, right? 5 giveaways, 5 sound bars are on grab today. I will spin this wheel. If your name comes, go to the chat and say, yes, you are there. And we will spin the wheel till the time there is no winner. Now, after this, I will remove all these entries and we will do a separate Wheel of Fortune for the folks who liked the post that we did on LinkedIn, right? So we posted about Orca Security and Elite CISO events. So if you like that post, if you supported Elite CISO on LinkedIn because we need visibility, so there'll be a separate Wheel of Fortune for them. OK, so I'm starting it now. If your name comes, go to the chat and say yes. And Baljot, if you can track the chat for me, that will be really helpful. Thanks for that. OK, so the first winner is, let's see who the first winner is. So Rashmi Sharma from Delhi chapter. Rashmi attends most of our events. I'm not sure if she is there today or not. Rashmi, if you are there, go to the chat and say yes, you are in this session. Is she there? Is a yes coming from Rashmi? Not yet, right? OK, now I'm going to spin it again. And if you are late in saying yes, that entry will be disqualified. So I'm spinning it one more time. And let's see who the winner is. Second one. Second one goes to Mr. Vivek Pathak, again, member from Delhi chapter. Vivek ji, if you are there or not, I'm not sure. If you are there, go to the chat and say yes.
Vivek is there. Yes.
Vivek is there. Awesome, Vivek ji. Congratulations. Congrats. So we will sync with you and take the address. It will take about 15 days, right? So sometimes winner gets little edgy and send me a WhatsApp. I still did not receive it. Just the next day. Guys, we got to order it. It takes about 15 days to get to your place. OK, so awesome. Congratulations. I'm going to remove all these entries. And now I am going to post only the people who supported Elite CISO's LinkedIn post and see how less cluttered it is as compared to the previous one, right? Still 158 people liked. So let's see how it goes. So I'm going to spin it again. If your name comes, go to the chat and say yes. Great. And the first one or the second one is Upkarji. Upkarji again from Delhi chapter. Upkarji, if you are there again, go to the chat and say yes. Yes, coming in.
Upkarji is there.
Upkarji is there.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great. Congratulations. I'm going to spin it for the third one now. Let's see. The third winner is Ravinder Arora again from Delhi chapter. What's happening, guys? I don't know. I did not do anything. It's Baljot's magic, I believe. So Ravinder, if you're there, go to the chat and say yes. Because Baljot is based out of Delhi, right? I don't think Ravinder is there. He did mention that he will not be attending. So I'm going to spin it again. Rajesh Panchalji from Mumbai chapter. Rajesh ji is there in the session because in the WhatsApp group he had posted a snapshot from the session. So Rajesh ji, if you are still there, go to the chat and say yes. Is there? Awesome.
Demo Rajesh Panchal, yes. Or is it somebody?
Perfect, perfect, perfect. OK, so I'm going to spin it for the last time now. This is the fifth one. And Mr. Syed Ehsan from Bangalore chapter. So again, it went to all the chapters, Delhi, Mumbai and Bangalore. Syed bhai, if you're there, go to the chat and say yes, Amar, it is not fixed. 6:10, we just have 5 more minutes. Mr. Syed is not there, right? OK.
We don't.
I spin it again for the last one? Okay, I'm going to spin it for the last one now. Yeah, Rajesh is happy, KRC. Arun Padmanabhan, again from Bangalore. Again from Bangalore. I'm not sure if Arun is there or not. We'll wait for 10 seconds. Arun, you got to be fast. It's already 6:11. I don't think Arun is there. Should I spin it again? Okay, let me spin it. Jobin from Chennai chapter. Jobin, if you are there, go to the chat and say yes. Oh, yes, coming. Still no yes. Okay, okay. Let me spin it one more time.
Oh, Jobin is there. Jobin is there.
Jobin is there? Okay, awesome, great. So all the 5 are gone. And Baljot Bhai, I'm sure you have taken the names of the winner who were there, right? Because I was not tracking. So send me a WhatsApp of the winner's name. 6:11, great, perfect timing. So thanks everyone for joining in. Thanks Andy, thanks Orca team. Really, really great session we had. Hopefully we will have a physical session and we will fly you down, Andy. Great session we had. So thank you very much. Bye everyone for now. See you in the physical event, right? Okay guys, so go ahead and register for physical event. Bye for now. Thank you.